Hey guys, welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about orcs. But before we go any further, I have a question. Because I had mentioned that we were going to look at Deathcore of Krieg in a previous video. However, as far as I can tell, the most recent army book for Deathcore of Krieg is 6th edition, and I want to know if that is correct. It's not available on Games Workshop's website as far as I can tell. So, if 6th edition is the most recent dedicated army book for Deathcore of Krieg, then that's what we'll go with. But if you know better, please leave a comment and tell me what's up. But let's get back to the subject of this video, orcs. Welcome, Warboss, to Codex Orks. Every greenskin worth his teeth knows that books are best used for bashing people over the head. That fact notwithstanding, you will find that this squig-gnawed tome contains all the information you need to learn about the anarchic orc race and gather your miniatures into a fearsome warband. The orcs are the most savage and warlike species in the galaxy, and, also being one of the most numerous, can be found infesting its every corner. Far removed from the enigmatic and scheming nature of many other races, greenskins are simple beings who live for battle. They thrive on violence and rarely think beyond the next punch-up, breakneck race, or deafening gunfight. Yet when massed in significant numbers and led by a suitably mighty warlord, orc warbands can sweep across the stars in frenzied crusades known as Waz, which can crush entire systems and turn whole regions of the galaxy green. Orc armies are immensely varied, from hordes of brutal infantry and columns of ramshackle yet deadly vehicles, to squadrons of high-velocity attack craft, batteries of madcap artillery, and mobs of clanking combat walkers. Hailing from a number of different clans, such as the speed-crazed Evil Sons, the brutish Goths, or the super-flashy Bad Moons, each of which have their own weird predilections and ways of war. Orc forces are very easy to personalize, both in terms of their look and their playing style on the tabletop. Every orc citadel miniature is lavishly detailed, and in many cases, they have interchangeable components that allow greenskin collectors to customize and convert their army in almost limitless ways. Coupled with the vivid color schemes of the clans and the flourishes of gallows humor that can be found throughout the orcs' background and rules, it is easy to see why these thuggish aliens are a popular and extremely enjoyable army to collect, paint, and play with. The barbarous hordes. Greenskins are one of the most dangerous and pervasive species to plague the stars. Numerous beyond belief and driven always to fight and conquer, the orcs and their ilk threaten to overwhelm every single galactic empire, stronghold, and race. Amid constant seething tides of war and bloodshed, burgeoning greenskin empires rise and fall. Most are mercifully short-lived, soon destroying themselves in a maelstrom of violence. But should the orcs ever truly unify, they would crush all opposition. Their race's unquenchable thirst for battle has always proved their downfall. Historically, the green-skinned tribes have spent much of their time fighting amongst themselves, waging brutal wars in which only the strongest survive. On occasion, an orc leader will emerge who is mighty enough to defeat his rivals and unite the warring tribes. His success draws other tribes to him, and soon a great war is underway. Partly a migration, partly a holy war that can exterminate the populations of entire star systems. When the orcs are on the rampage, the galaxy trembles, and in these dark days there are more wars rising than ever before. The orcs are the pinnacle of creation. For them, the great struggle is won. They have evolved a society which knows no stress or angst. Who are we to judge them? We Eldari who have failed, or the humans on the road to ruin in their turn. And why? Because we sought answers to questions that an orc wouldn't even bother to ask. We see a culture that is strong and despise it as crude. Uthan, the perverse Eldari philosopher. The orc. Orcs have but one philosophy: might makes right. Over the countless millennia in which the greenskins have waged their wars, not one of their number has doubted this for a single moment. This unshakable self-belief is perhaps the most dangerous quality of the orcs, for they will never cease in their efforts to plunge the entire galaxy into eternal war. The orcs rule their barbaric civilization with an iron fist. Ugly and violent creatures, they are the dominant life forms of a race that includes the smaller Gretchen and Snotlings subspecies. Orcs see themselves as the toughest inhabitants of the galaxy, stronger by far than humans, Eldari, or Tau. To prove their point, the orcs are more than willing to fight and kill everything that crosses their path. Orcoid physique itself is so robust that it can withstand tremendous punishment. They feel remarkably little pain, enabling them to fight on whilst horrifically injured, and even for a short time after being technically dead. It is believed by some who study these brutes, albeit from afar, that this goes some way to explaining the greenskins' ultra-violent sense of humor. As pain and fear mean little to them, they are highly curious and amused by the reactions of their weaker foes as they hack them apart. The screams of terror contrasting with the deep, throaty rumble of the orcs, and the cruel snickering of their smaller brethren. The greenskin regenerative process itself is so powerful that an orc who has been hacked to bits can simply be stitched back together, bewildered but ready to fight once more. Nothing but the most grievous of wounds will put them down for long, and burning them to ash is reputed to be the only way to make absolutely sure that they are gone for good. A typical orc stands around the same height as a man, though he would be much taller were he to stand up straight instead of being hunched over, as is his normal stance, and his frame is extremely muscular and solid. An orc's arms are long and heavily thewed, knuckles almost scraping the floor as he lopes around, and his gnarled hands end in taloned fingers, capable of tearing an enemy's throat out with ease. The skin of an orc is green and as tough as leather, and his body is dotted with scars, scabs, pockmarks, and parasites. His skull is extremely thick, able to absorb impacts that would cave in a human head. His heavy brow protrudes over blood-red eyes that are afire with the need to kill. Jagged fangs jut from a rugged jaw that would not look out of place upon a far larger predator, and when an orc speaks, it is in a slow, gruff tone, thick with saliva and guttural curses. His words are sparse, brutal, and straight to the point. The simple life. One of the greatest strengths of the orcs is the simplicity with which they approach their existence. For them, the universe is an incredibly straightforward place, free of the angst and worry that plagues most other races. I want to apologize for my tripping over my words so far. Orcs typically do not try to influence their own destiny, only to get frustrated when their plans do not work out as expected. They do not look for something to blame, except perhaps the nearest Gretchen or a hated rival tribe, and certainly do not reflect on weaknesses in their own way of doing things. They just try again a different way, usually because they have forgotten how they did it the last time. Thus, the orcs make remarkable progress by trial and error without counting the cost. Meanwhile, other races steeped in high-flown philosophy and cleaving to their millennia-old practices fall into the same traps time and again, doomed to stagnate and decline, unless, of course, they are first conquered by the orcs. So long as the average orc has someone to fight, someone bigger than him to tell him who to kill next, and someone smaller than him to beat up, he knows contentment. Orcs do not tend to go hungry, as they can eat virtually anything, even Gretchen, Snotlings, or one another in a pinch. Indeed, greenskins feel none of the moral outrage towards cannibalism that the practice inspires among many other races, as it is only natural that the bigger orcs should live at the cost of those weaker than themselves. With war and killing as their only real motivators, most orcs have little interest in gathering material wealth or luxuries. The only exception to this is a desire to possess increasingly more ostentatious and deadly weapons and vehicles. An orc will go to almost any lengths to get his hands on a louder, quicker-firing shooter or faster buggy, obsessing over its acquisition until the exact moment he has it, at which point his eye will stray to something even bigger and showier. In greenskin society, teeth are used as currency and form the entire basis of the economy. The teeth, or teeth, must be big, sharp, ivory-like fangs to have any value. Those of races such as humans or Eldari are just too fiddly and pathetic to have any real worth. Orcs shed and replace their teeth every few years, meaning that the number of teeth in circulation never diminishes enough to create a shortage, and that no individual orc can be reduced to dire poverty for too long. This simple approach to an issue most civilizations agonize about has been in place since time immemorial, and is typical of the pragmatic attitude of the greenskin race. Orks grin. In the closing years of the 41st millennium, a monstrous cascade of warp storms tore its way across the galaxy and all but split the Imperium of mankind in two. This catastrophe was the work of Abaddon the Despoiler, greatest of all mortal chaos champions. Yet the vast majority of the greenskin race knew nothing of the events leading up to the Great Rift, or its true cause. All they saw was an almighty rent tearing across the vastness of space and consuming everything it touched. The Orks have two gods, Gork, who is brutal but cunning, and Mork, who is cunning but brutal. To the greenskins, it was obvious that the Great Rift was in fact the leering gob of Gork, opening wide to swallow the stars. Admittedly, a prodigious number of renegades, demons, and other creatures of chaos were issuing forth from this sprawling astronomical phenomenon. But as the smartest orcs of each tribe were quick to point out, Gork obviously did not want to swallow that sort of unnatural filth. Instead, he was vomiting up the Chaos Worshippers so that the Orks could fight them and win. Equally, those orc tribes whose worlds were consumed by the spreading of the rift bore their god no ill will. Clearly, Gork had decided that those tribes were going a bit soft, and so had eaten their planets in order to propel them out into space and send them on the warpath. Soon it dawned on many enterprising war bosses that if Gork could swallow up and spit out chaos armies, he would gladly do the same for his own lads. So it was that dozens of greenskin armadas plunged headlong into the Great Rift, vanishing into raging warp storms in the hopes of being catapulted into fresh galactic conquests. The Green Menace. From pirate enclaves to system-spanning empires, orc holdings are as varied as they are steeped in violence. When the greenskins invade a planet or star system, they bring with them a belligerent ecosystem that overwhelms each conquered world, as surely as the orcs themselves crush its defenders. Greenskin society and ecology is so robust that it can exist almost anywhere. The Imperium have encountered orcs and their kind living, even prospering, in such extreme environments as toxic death worlds, newborn planets still heaving with volcanic activity, or the depressurized carcasses of abandoned orbital platforms. Orc tribes have been found inhabiting drifting ice floes and infesting irradiated asteroid fields perilously close to active stars. They have been discovered amid corrosive chemical swamps, on lightless nightmare worlds seething with horrific predators, and in the bombed-out remains of planets subjected to exterminatus. It is rumored amongst the Imperium's rogue traders that there are even orc enclaves hidden within the Eye of Terror. No matter where they are encountered or in what numbers, the greenskins are a deadly threat who will multiply exponentially if left unchecked. In a matter of weeks, a small raiding party can swell, as if by some arcane alchemy, into an anarchic horde bent upon war and destruction. The other races of the galaxy have many theories regarding how the orcs' numbers increase so quickly. These range from spontaneous physical division to the release of wind-borne spores after death. The notorious Vandermeist theorem posits that the greenskins inhabit an alternative pocket of reality, and simply fall through, fully formed, wherever others of their kind are already at war. humans is pink and soft, not tough and green like the Boyz. They's all the same size too, so they's always arguing about who's in charge, 'cause no way of telling 'cept for badges and uniforms and things. When one of him wants to lord it over the others, he says, "I'm very special, so's you got to worship me." Or, "I know something what you lot don't know, so you better listen good." The funny thing is, half of them believe it, and other half don't. So he has to hit 'em all anyways, or run for it. What a lot of mucking about, if you ask me. And while they's all arguing with each other over who's the boss, the orcs can clobber the lot. Anon, on humanity and its weaknesses. While many of these wild suggestions are patently ridiculous, it is certainly the case that where one orc is encountered, more will never be far away. Combined with their relentlessly warlike nature and tendency to grow larger and more powerful with every battle they survive, it is easy to see how rampaging orcs can quickly overwhelm a planet's defenses. A ragged band of greenskins who are allowed to escape the wreckage of their spacecraft and disappear into a city's underhive will return within weeks as a horde of murderous savages, sweeping all before them in their desire for conquest. Those they do not kill are enslaved, and that which they do not destroy is looted. Before long, another world is conquered by the orcs, its cities reduced to ruins, and its populace toiling in chains for their brutal greenskin overlords. Those who have studied orc settlements firsthand, and somehow survived their ordeal, have detailed a civilization that is hierarchical in the extreme. The life of a greenskin is not determined by rank or birth, but by size and savagery. The largest orcs push around their smaller brethren, who in turn bully the diminutive slave race known as Gretchen into doing their bidding. Smaller still are the Snotlings, tiny and simple-minded creatures with little use beyond fetching, carrying, or fungus tending. The greenskin subspecies have a symbiotic relationship of sorts, with the smaller creatures performing menial tasks for their orc overseers in exchange for a measure of protection. Gretchen, commonly known as grots, Gretchen are even more numerous than orcs. Although they possess a similar physiology to their larger brethren, they are not as strong or tough. To compensate for this, the Gretchen possess an abundance of low cunning. They scurry around the larger greenskins on scrawny legs, their grasping fingers overtly snatching and covertly stealing from the unwary. Gretchen have large, bulbous heads and wide, tattered ears that flatten against their bald pates when they are afraid, which is most of the time. Sharp fangs fill their jaws, ready to be sunk into the flesh of the weak or infirm, and malice gleams in their eyes whenever there is an opportunity for violence. The grots' large and protuberant noses give them an excellent sense of smell. Their ears afford them a similarly advanced sense of hearing, and their eyesight is acute even in the dark. These traits, combined with an innate talent for self-preservation, mean that Gretchen can not only survive, but thrive in a society dominated by vicious predators. Some grots have their survival instinct honed to such a degree that they may possess a rudimentary sixth sense, and most improve their chances of survival by exhibiting fawning behavior to their orc masters. though braver Gretchen will pull faces and make rude gestures behind the backs of the bigger greenskins, few are stupid enough to risk doing it openly. Grots are fast learners and quick to spot an opportunity, meaning that many wind up as assistants or servants to more important orcs, like mech boys or knobs. Others simply attempt to stay out of the orcs' way, whole groups of grots fashioning hideouts amidst scrap piles, or warrens of tunnels too constricted for orcs to squeeze their bulk down. When the time comes to go to war, the grots are flushed out of these hidey holes en masse by the gnashing squig hounds of the runt herds, or a few enthusiastic Burna boys. On his own, a single Gretchen poses little threat to a human-sized adversary. However, if there is one quality the grots have in abundance, it is quantity. On the field of battle, Gretchen advance in great mobs, firing volleys of scavenged ammunition from their poor-quality weapons, before diving upon the fallen and tearing them apart in their scrappling haste to loot the corpses. Even the most accomplished warriors have found their arrogance punctured when cornered by an entire mob of shrieking grots. Gretchen can prove especially dangerous during naval boarding actions, for while their orc masters tie up a ship's defenders in furious point-blank battles, these wily creatures, avoiding such bloody fighting like the plague, contribute in less direct ways. Knots of them squirm through air ducts, sabotage or loot vital machine components, and overwhelm triage stations full of helpless, wounded combatants. When grots wreck a ship's void shield generatorum, or burst from the ducts to overrun a vital choke point mid-battle, the foe quickly learns to fear, if not respect, these nasty little greenskins. Snotlings. Snotlings, or snots, look like tiny, immature Gretchen. Their scrawny limbs are too small to bear weapons larger or more complicated than shards of broken glass or chunks of scrap. Lacking the violent tendencies of their larger kin, they are predominantly kept as little more than pets for their orc masters, although they make excellent ammunition for the strange weapon the greenskins call the shock attack gun. Nonetheless, snots do perform a valuable function in orc society. It is they who cultivate the great patches of fungi that spring up around orc settlements. In this way, snotlings provide food, drink, and medicine for the rest of the greenskin race. Snots also inhabit cesspits, areas known in orc society as the drops, where they look after all manner of ferocious, squiggly beasts. Their natural affinity with these life forms is far greater than that of other greenskins. Helpfully, this means that on any given day, only a few dozen snotling attendants will be devoured alive by their ravenous charges. The snotling population that spring up around orc settlements are monitored and cultivated by runt herds. These grizzled and merciless slavers use a variety of methods to bully their charges into a state of anxious obedience, not least of which are the much-feared grot prod and the ferocious squig hound. The Lost Race. Orc legends are passed down by the runt herds, those who specialize in the breeding and training of Gretchen, snotlings, and squiggly beasts. One enduring myth speaks of a species of greenskin who created the modern orc race as warriors and protectors, breeding them to be as strong and fierce as possible. described as being much smaller and far more intelligent than their servants. These mysterious figures, commonly referred to as brain boys, are said to have developed amazing technologies and directed their people's expansion across the stars. If the brain boys ever existed, however, they do not do so now. Some runtards claim a great plague caused the orcs' creators to die out or devolve. Others violently assert that the brain boys were even more warlike than their servants, and that they took the biggest and best orcs going and set off to find the ultimate war. Whatever the truth, almost all runtards agree that the brain boys took steps to preserve what they could of their culture before their disappearance by using strange sciences to engineer pure knowledge into the bodies and minds of their slaves. This aspect of the myth has been given surprising credence by many amongst the magos biologists of the Imperium, who theorize that orcs retain such a relatively high level of technology because the skills and information needed to do so are hardwired into their genes. Whether or not the legends told by the runtards or theories posited by the Imperium contain a kernel of truth is largely irrelevant in any case. The orcs, though ignorant and brutish, are born survivors. They are resourceful and resilient in the extreme, and the vast majority of them couldn't care less how they got that way. And with that, we are going to bring this video to an end. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you're still awake, still watching the video, or even just still paying attention, please leave a comment if you know what the deal with the Deathcore of Greek Codex is, because I would like to do that. I'm going to be alternating orcs and Space Marines until I finish Space Marines, and I'd like to be able to move into Deathcore after that. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.